Hi, this is Brennan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here with Lady Chow Fung, Kenny, and Adam to talk about The Deadly Breaking Sword, a 1979 film by Chung. This movie stars Ti Lung, Alexander Fu Sheng, Shi Su, and Ku Feng, and Michael Chan, as well as a small role by Lily Lee Lily. And I don't know how... It's sort of an interesting movie. We'll get into what people think of the film, but it's basically about an arrogant swordsman who is dashing and sort of, well dressed and very eccentric in that he always brings a coffin to his duels and embeds an inch of his sword into his enemies. And the film starts out with a duel that goes awry, where you see he embeds his sword in the guy, and the guy escapes and goes to a doctor. And then the whole rest of the film is him getting bound up with this courtesan and a gambling hall guard. And there's a backstory where the gambling hall guard, or the courtesan, it has a grudge with the doctor who cures the guy that he had a duel with, and they end up settling that grudge over the course of the film. I think it's a sort of a sloppy assessment of it, but that's basically the plot. What did you guys think of the movie?
I enjoyed it. I think I quite enjoyed how all the different sort of threads were very entirely separate, but then they sort of meet together in parts, and then ultimately they wove its way to the conclusion, to the ending of the story there. And what I really enjoyed about it is just sort of the hints that everybody in the in the movie had their own sort of story that you can sort of make guesses at. They all had their own life story and experiences, and I just enjoyed the fact that you could get the hint of the wider world through it.
I liked the movie. I think it was a little convoluted in some points, but I did like it. I think that the characters were so real and grounded in the way that, like Kenny said, they all had some kind of backstory that comes to light, and we get to see a little bit of it, and we really don't know who the worst person is in the movie until really the end. There's really no true villain in this movie, in my opinion. It's just that everybody has their faults and everyone's done some really bad things. And it's just, that's it.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with everyone else as far as that goes. It's definitely it's one of those movies that if you were to try and judge it based on like how you're supposed to arrange a screenplay, it's kind of a jumbled mess, but it works. It's one of those cases of kind of breaking the rules, but it came together in an entertaining fashion for me. I think because the characters are so strong in this, that you stay entertained even though you're not really clear where the story's going, or even for the first half of the movie I wasn't even quite sure what the story was exactly. It was just these characters kind of interacting with each other, and and it's interesting about is there a villain to the movie, because the character who's ultimately revealed as the villain did do the bad thing he's supposed to do, but it seems like in a lot of other regards he's actually a pretty decent guy a lot of the time too. So he's definitely someone who's done something bad, but whether he's a villain exactly, I don't know. It's a complicated question.
Yeah, and my it's funny. When I first watched the movie the other day, number one, I realized I'd already seen the movie, but I had forgotten most of the plot details, and it kind of, like I must have seen the film and then just kind of put it in a drawer somewhere and not really thought much of it since then. Because all of the things that come up in the movie, I was sort of aware of them before they happened. But the first time I saw it this week, I was so focused on the plot, I didn't enjoy myself that much. And I think it's exactly kind of what you're talking about, Adam. And then the second time I saw it, I focused a lot more on the characters, and I had a good time. So I think this is the kind of movie where you kind of have to let the characters do the work, and not worry about the plot, because really the plot is kind of this really simple thing that all just kind of comes together in the end. It seems like it's it's there's this launching point at the beginning, and there is also kind of a really nice sense of closure to the movie, I think, where it opens with the duel between these two men and closes with the duel between them, and so that was kind of sort of a nice closing. But a lot of the plot threads are they're sort of, it almost feels like they're held in abeyance until all the characters do the things that they want them to do, and then the movie comes to a close.
Yeah, because I mean, the movie, it almost feels like it's a confusing movie, but once you know what's going on, there's nothing complicated about it at all. It's a very simple plot. It's just, it takes a while to kind of coalesce.
It's so simple. I think I was confused by it because I was expecting more complexity. Like I was like, well, wait, why did he end up agreeing to actually go kill the doctor in the end? When at first he was, he came to believe that the doctor wasn't responsible, and it was a very straightforward path, but it was so straightforward that I was almost a little bit confused by it.
Yeah, when she sets up the story about the doctor, then I expected the doctor to have some counter story, but everything she said was just true. It's like, yeah, he fools people into thinking it's not true, but no, there's no other second layer that's going to be revealed.
And I figured that she would at least have a layer, like there would be more depth to her story, like she would say, okay, well, that's not exactly what happened. This is but there was none of that, and so and I was just confused by its absence. But in the end, it was an enjoyable film. You just have to it's one of these films where you do have to kind of realize, okay, they're just going to be hanging out at this gambling hall in this brothel for the whole movie, and it's all about the characters. It's all about just the characters being their quirky selves, and if you don't enjoy the characters, you won't enjoy the film. I think that's
true.
An important point. And so I don't know, I guess we could go through the characters. That would be one way to sort of assess the film, since it's a character-based movie. So the first film is Tuan Chang-ching, the Ti Lung character, whose nickname is Deadly Breaking Sword. And he kind of has this, I think dashing is the right word to describe him, but almost to the point of being ridiculous, I think.
Yeah.
He's a bit over the top.
Yeah.
Suave is what they're trying to go for, right?
Yeah, he's very suave and just a little bit too impeccable in everything he does. And he always purchases coffins for his enemies, which is this is a flourish that you see a lot in the genre, but I love when people show up with a coffin that they're intending to put somebody in. And he kind of does it as a courtesy. Like, I think it's arrogance and courtesy coming together, where he's obviously confident that he's going to win the fight, but he's at least giving you a good burial. And the other thing he does, and I have some questions about this technique, is whenever he kills an enemy, he leaves an inch of his sword embedded in them for some reason. And so he's got this broken sword. That's why it's the Deadly Breaking Sword. But we see him have, like, 2 or 3 duels over the course of the film, and he leaves, like, a good-sized piece of sword like that, in each foe. But we're led to believe that he's had countless duels. So my question is he just been leaving tinier pieces in everybody, or does he change his sword when it reaches a certain point? Like,
it could have been a really long sword to start. It was kind of
like
one of those
ridiculously long sword.
Yeah, those crazy anime type swords that
like an 8-foot long giant sword.
One thing I thought would have been cooler about the film is if the sword was really short by the time the film started. I thought that would have been.
I was thinking that would be cool too, but I don't know. Well, it's funny too because the whole issue of length of weapons gets brought up in the final scene too. But so it would have been interesting if his weapon had gotten shorter. But I don't know.
His reasoning was that his mastery of the sword allowed him to snap off a part of it whenever he killed someone, right? And I don't know. It's just like I feel like but to be fair, like there's nothing about his sword was like implied to be special in any way, other than the fact that he broke off pieces of it. So maybe after every fight he finds a blacksmith, and then the blacksmith just like adds on a few more inches.
That could be it. He's just adding that inch to dislodge each time. But
yeah, he has it added, but he also has just make it so it'll break off just a little bit easy. That's what he has it specially made to break off.
Yeah.
But the sword's also quite cool in that it has a really elaborate sort of almost like an engraved scabbard. It looked like it was a little hard to see exactly what was going on with it, but he fights mainly with it in the scabbard, and so you kind of
until he's ready to kill.
Yeah, he only takes it out when he's ready to kill, and presumably if the opponent's even worthy of his time. And so I don't know. He just has this very calm style about him that really works. I thought Ti Lung did a good job with him. But then I guess that brings us to the Alexander Fu Sheng character, Zhao Dao, who fights with a dagger that's sort of similar. It's got like a really long scabbard, but it's like a piece of bamboo or something. And he and for the first half of the movie, you just think he's walking around clubbing people. And he's uncouth. He's a gambling fiend, and he ends up losing his freedom at a gambling hall when a woman played by Lily, what was her name? Lua Jinhua, I think.
Yeah.
I think she's in love with him, and she gets.
She is.
Is that what it is? Yeah. So she's in love with him.
She's in love with him, and she wants to have a husband, and so she has her uncle help trick Alexander Fu Sheng's character into this contract where he ends up living at the brothel, so that she continuously tries to lose his money so he can't get out of it.
And his defining feature is he only cares about gold and nothing else. Like at one point a courtesan offers to pay him, what was it, like 500 taels or something, or 100 taels to perform a job, and he says, well, for that money I'll sleep with you. And so like he doesn't seem to have any. It's a weird reversal, number one, but we see him early in the movie like pushing away some prostitutes because he's on his way to the gambling hall, and it's like he doesn't want to be distracted, so he's just all about the gambling, all about the money, and to the point of like, he's almost got like a nerdy obsession about it. He builds a custom chest for all the taels that he needs to collect to buy his freedom. Which again, I was wondering how much that cost him to buy, because it seems like
maybe it's found wood, reclaimed wood that he found somewhere.
That's true, but he still had to have it put together. What was that?
I was gonna say, like, usually, like when they give people towels, they're in a tray of like each. They're all like have indented trays for the towels anyway. So maybe he just stole them from somewhere, and I put together a chest from like leftover crates lying around, and that's his like collection.
But he's basically the humor in the movie, I think.
Definitely.
And so I guess the question is whether, but there's. Again, there is this scene in the film where so the Lua Jinhua character, she's throughout the movie trying to thwart all of his efforts to escape from the gambling hall, and so at one point she tricks him into buying I think it was like an ivory statue that he believes is worth more than it is, and it turns out to be junk. And then when he finally gets some banknotes that's enough for him to earn his freedom, she burns them, and he reacts by throwing her into a well. And the way that the scene is shot, and the fact that we don't see her again, and that this scene is never even addressed, it looks like he kills her. That's.
I mean, to Shadow's benefit, he was dunking her in the way. He didn't just throw her in. So there's some ambiguity. Like he was holding her by the ankles and like dunking her in and out of the well. So I feel like there is a bit of like interpretation there. So yeah, like you said, they don't address the fallout of that at all. I mean, is he now a wanted criminal for the murder of Lord Jinhua, or did he really take the prank a bit too far, and she's actually okay?
Well, that's the question, and I don't know. So what Kenny? Where do you fall on the like? What was your gut instinct on that one.
I think he just scared her. Like, I think he basically tortured her for a bit and then kept her alive, I think. Like, he hasn't killed anyone in the movie.
No, and in fact, he almost refused an offer to kill somebody because he was afraid it was an innocent person. So it seems slightly out of character. But again, the way the scene was shot, I kept reaching the conclusion that she was killed.
Yeah, because I wonder if it's just from the standpoint of it being his lowest moment before he comes back as a hero. It's like he kills her, he rides off on the horse, but then he redeems himself in the final scene by coming back. So, I mean, that's one way to interpret it. I'm not 100% sure on that either.
But do you think he killed her, or do you think that Kenny's thought?
I thought he killed her when I was watching the scene. That was my initial reaction. I mean, like I said, thinking back, I can interpret it different ways. I have to say, that scene, though, that whole scene, I have to also comment on something entirely different, which is having that candle there, the entire scene, they're waving the money order around. It's like it goes by the flame so many times. You're like, when is the money order going to catch on fire? Just do it because you're driving me nuts. That was a really funny kind of device to have sitting there right
it's
there.
Chekhov's gun, right?
Yeah, it is.
It was like the perfect example.
Lady Chow Fung, what about you? What do you think happened?
I thought he killed her. That he dumped her in the well. I wasn't exactly sure if he killed her. I was hoping that someone would come back later and get her. But, to me, her not showing up the rest of the movie was a sign to me that she was dead. Or she now, after Kenny has started talking about it, maybe she was just too afraid of him and the love wore off, and then she just stayed away from him the rest of the movie.
Yeah, but
there's a scene of him riding away, right? So I don't know, but so my sort of headcanon here is that he frightened the hell out of her. And then, he decided that, he gives no shit about his slavery contract anymore, and he was just gonna, fuck off somewhere and like live his own life. I mean, to be like, it's literally a piece of paper. I mean, there's nothing like physically binding him to the place. It's just his sense of pride. And when Lord Jinhua, threw all decorum out the window, it's just like, well, it's fine. In that case, I'll just leave. But not before, just showing you a bit of like, what I'm capable of. I'm not going to kill you. I'm just going to waterboard you basically for a bit.
Yeah, I just found it a very sort of perplexing part of the movie, and definitely it totally changes the feel of everything depending on which way it goes, because his character is kind of the goofball throughout the film, and if his character gets that dark before the end, it's sort of an unusual thing. What about the Michael Chan character, Leon San, throat-piercing halberd? He's kind of an interesting guy, actually, because he's sort of a villain, but not really. Like it looked like he was having a legitimate duel at the start of the movie with Tuan, and he kind of has a legitimate gripe against him. He got pierced him in the collarbone, and he wants to get revenge. And he just seems to express gratitude towards the doctor who heals him. So he's not like excessively villainous or anything.
Yeah, I didn't see.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Kenny.
No, that's fine.
I didn't see him as a villain the whole movie. I just thought him as a opponent, and a grateful opponent who trusted the wrong person in trusting the doctor. And with all the hangers on that were at the doctor's house, you would have thought that maybe something was up with all these weird people hanging about. But yeah, I didn't really think of him as a villain. I just thought of him as an equal opponent that I was hoping was going to take our character down to a notch or two. But that didn't work out all that well.
Yeah, he was. Oh, go ahead.
I was just to say, like his character, like I don't know, he plays part of a very typical sort of wuxia grudge thing where, yeah, it's like his own fault for like challenging Tuan Ching in the first place, and then when he gets beaten, it's like I have a grudge against you now. I'm just gonna run away, and when I get a chance, I'm gonna come and kill you. Yeah, it wasn't. I don't think it was. T Lung's character's fault at all. I mean, he accepted the challenge, prepared the coffin for him out of the nicest of his heart, and things just played out badly for.
I don't think T Lung did anything wrong in that duel, but I can understand why the guy wanted to get back at him after the duel.
See, I can turn the Doctor and throw Piercing Halberd into the good guys. I mean, all the Doctor did was turned in a criminal. That's all he did. He turned in a criminal who deserved to be in jail, and Halberd was just protecting the Doctor that helped him. I mean, and look at Deadly Breaking Sword. He like breaks into a prison, breaks out a criminal. I mean, he's clearly not a good guy.
I mean, the whole turning in the brother thing. That's sort of like, you're right. He turns in a criminal, and I think as a plot point at the end of another movie, for example, that would be where the smart main character turns in the criminal and runs off into the sunset with the money that that the criminal has earned through ill-gotten means, and it lives his life in peace. Right?
Well, the thing with that backstory though is that what was his nickname? Killer Doctor, Dr. Gua.
Yes.
Killer Doctor was like had some kind of sworn brother situation going on with the guy that he called the constables on, and he obviously just did it for the enormous reward, and we're seeing him live the fruits of those ill-gotten gains at the because he's one of the wealthiest people in town. He's got a retinue of martial experts, and I apologize for the lightning in the background if that's picking up. So I think he's a morally shady guy, to be sure. But he's not like he's not the worst villain that we've seen by any stretch in these movies. No,
and I kind of got the feeling that maybe the Killer Doctor might have been in on his sworn brother's dirty dealings. They were kind of partners in a way, so he turned in his partner to get even more money, and then moved on to another town to hide.
Well, and he knew where the money was too, because the guy told him where he put his money. He said it was like in this bank in this town, and then he gets turned in, and so the Doctor's probably doubly wealthy. He's probably got the reward, and he probably found his way into that bank and got the money from what I think they were robbing places, right? That was it was not legitimate business, because which does bring us to the Shisu character. What was her name? Lu Yinju, I think her name was, the courtesan. And so she kind of arrives in town, and she's this mysterious, beautiful courtesan, and it turns out that she's really there to get revenge against the Doctor on behalf of her brother, who was betrayed by the Doctor. And so, I don't know, any thoughts on that character or that situation?
I just find it amusing that there was only sort of one instance where she interacted with Dr. Guo, as far as I can remember. Actually, it was when she went to his house to thank him for his gift, and I thought that's kind of a bit of a strange thing to do, to be honest. I mean, it wasn't that many years ago, I think, when her brother was betrayed, and in the flashback that we get to see, like, she was, basically an adult woman at that point, anyway. So, it's like, do you really want to, go to the home of your arch enemy and like flaunt yourself before him and just say like, oh, that everybody there is surnamed Chen, and just name your brother basically?
Well, I think she went because, first off, I think she went to see if he would remember or recognize her. And if he did, if she did, then her kind of thing to say to him was, I'm here and I'm doing something about my brother, kind of like a double-edged sword kind of thing. Do you remember me? And if you do, I'm going to get you.
I think she wanted confirmation. Yeah, because it seemed like she was fishing when she went there, and she was describing her brother, and she was describing it in vague enough terms so that he was kind of like reacting and even filling in blanks, and it was I think she was trying to confirm that it was him before she hired somebody to kill him. But I don't know. It was an unusual scene though. But he was clearly confused. He clearly recognized her a little bit, but didn't put it together. So I think. But yeah, I don't know. It was and then the other character that was of note was the Lua Jinhua character who we talked about. But any thoughts on her and her uncle and the situation at the gambling hall? Because it's kind of, I mean, basically, what's the location? We have a gambling hall that's abutting a brothel, right? And
yeah, so we have the gambling hall. It's a separate building from the brothel, but it's literally right next door, and there's a single wall sort of separating them. In the gambling hall, I think there's also like the money lending service, the pawn shop, basically. I think it was, and that's what the uncle runs. Sort of like they own the casino anyway, but they also operate a pawn shop within there. Because I think there was there was the antique seller who was trying to pawn off his jade vessel of some sort in the casino, and I
think that was like an ad hoc trade that he was trying to do, but I'm not 100% sure. And and also notably the brothel, the madam of the brothel was Teresa Ha Ping, who Adam, I don't know if you remember our discussion of Chinatown Kid, the woman that was in the car that we were talking about.
Yeah.
We really should do Magic Blade at some point so we can talk about her Devil Grandma character. Because that's where she truly shines, I think. But yeah. So I don't know any thoughts though on the any other thoughts on the gambling hall?
I recognize the game they're playing. I think it's called Pai Gao. It's just like weird domino game, right? I was trying to like work out like the rules from it. I couldn't really tell. Like they're just like, oh, I got this many points, I win. And the game shows up like a few times throughout the movie, and I was just like, I have no idea what the rules are, and all I can really go by is whether they say this person win or this person loses.
Yeah, it's played in a lot of movies.
They play. Yeah, I really wish I knew more about these games because a lot of times I don't understand the win, like what the win conditions are, and I'll look at it, I'll be like, and I'll think I understand it, and then they'll put a domino down, and I'll be like, oh, okay, I clearly don't understand this game. And
it's interesting. Like, I wonder why they chose that particular game instead of like, say, dice. Dice is another very common gambling thing.
I think there's something very visually interesting about the use of the dominoes, especially when you have a comedic character like Alexander Fu Sheng's in this one, where like he's sort of using them as props to, like all of his fidgeting and stuff was just really working with the dominoes, I thought.
I think also too, I mean, it has a plot significance in the final scene too, because a character slips on the dominoes when they spill all over the ground. So they do actually come together in the final scene and have some. I mean, it's not really a fight deciding slide or anything, but they do kind of matter.
And well, also in other movies that you see them in, they seem to be easy to cheat with, so the gambling house can take advantage of the people that are gambling.
That's an interesting thought. Yeah, I mean, like cards, you can manipulate them.
Yeah, I know that. And now in terms of the fight choreography, I mean, I know it's. I didn't feel like there was a huge amount of fighting in this film, or at least if there was, it wasn't it maybe didn't last that long or something. I don't know, but what did you guys think of the fighting that we did have?
I just want to know if Lian San, the throat piercing halberd guy's like revelation, after his recovery was that but if he spins the shaft of his halberd, like he can create a bit more of a threat. Because I think that was the only sort of new thing he did. I'll do in the beginning.
Actually, yeah. Before we talk about the fighting, we should talk about that because that's like a really interesting point. It's reminiscent. I think what was the movie? I think The Bastard Swordsman is the film I'm thinking of. But he has this transformation at the end of the movie that's a result of his care under Dr. Gua. And Dr. Gua tells him early on, you'll notice a change, like something's, you'll be better when it. And at first, you just think like, what are they talking about? Like itching, like he's gonna feel itchy in the wound, and it'll scab over. Like what kind of change? And it's a very significant change. His hair color changes a little bit. He gets like these orange stripes in his hair or something, and he just looks a little bit more, I don't know, like a lion-like or something. Like he just looks different at the end of it, and it's all, I think, due to the acupuncture that Dr. Guo was using on him. And so, I guess
I think there was a drink there too involved.
Was there? Okay, maybe there was some kind of transformative elixir that he gave to him. But like, what did you guys think of the transformation in general? And also, what do you think that like Kenny was saying? Like, what was the upshot of this transformation?
I really liked the transformation. I mean, it was completely random and unexpected and weird. I don't know if it really affected anything, but it was just this. I mean, in this movie that is a little bit just thrown together. Well, it feels thrown together where you have just events happening. It's like, whoa! It just added just another note of entertainment to the movie for me, whether it really mattered or not.
What about?
I thought.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I thought, wow, we're finally going to get our super villain here. I mean, he changed from being like a normal swordsman to being like dark hair has turned white with orange streaks, full beard and everything, and it's just like, wow, he's going to be some kind of superhuman strength, and it really wasn't.
No, and he was still kind of pretty honorable after the transformation. Like you still see him like a well-behaved man, except for the circumstances that they were all in. But you didn't get the impression that he was going to go out murdering people or anything.
Well, to be fair, he did randomly kill the guy with the shield, like the sword and shield guy, like who was running around. Like he stabbed him. Like I can't figure out why he did that.
Okay, I guess I guess maybe I guess I overlooked that. So maybe he's a little more bloodthirsty.
Maybe he thought that he was interrupting his duel with Tuan Chan Ching, but it was just like out of nowhere. It's like he just turns around and stabs this guy in the stomach as he's rolling along.
Well, they did establish that he and those hangers-on never really got along from the very beginning. There was always a very uneasy peace between them. And I think the hangers-on are also kind of the hangers-on and the sword spirits duo were kind of. This is again one of these movies where you just have you get this hints of this broader martial world through characters like this, but the hangers-on were kind of I don't know, like it seemed like the Doctor was surrounding himself with martial experts that were on his payroll in order to protect himself. But they had quite the attitude when they showed up.
See, when they were first introduced, before knowing the rest of the plot of the movie, I was thinking, okay, maybe those are the bandits that used to work together with like with the brother and the killer doctor, and that's why there's sort of hostile there against any new people joining because they have a tight knit group already. But no, they were literally just hanger on people around the Doctor instead of being anyone like actually significant.
Yeah, but I have to say it's interesting with Tuan Chan Ching, the way he's so judgmental of Zhao Dao's character, that he's just interested in money and stuff. But it feels like Tuan, it's like his whole it felt like all his his fights didn't feel like there was a lot of virtue to them. They just seem kind of these fights for pride to show how awesome he was, which, you know, to some level, it's like, is that any more honorable, particularly than doing stuff for money? I don't know.
Tuan,
yeah, Tuan, yeah,
yeah,
character.
yeah. I think he was full of himself. I mean, he wasn't. I mean, he was heroic in some respects. Like he tried to talk Zhao Dao into being less focused on money, but at the same time, he was really focused on his own ego and his own appearance and his own, you know, and he wears a new outfit every duel. Like, you know, he buys new clothes every time he fights somebody, and he's just, you know, this he can be kind of a jerk at times.
Definitely.
What I want to know is how he makes his money. Like, okay, he is a wandering swordsman. Like, it's not an official or anything. Yet somehow he has like rubies on his horses, new outfits. He even buys coffins for his enemies. Like, and I feel like he's not the type of person who would loot his enemy either, right? So he's doing something to make money, surely. Like, he hands over like, what I assume is at least 1,000 taels. He said he would double Xiao Dao's pay, right? So he hands over at least 1,000 taels and still has a whole handful of it left over. So he's like very loaded.
He could have been born into money. Maybe he's like a landed aristocrat or something, you know, who just is, you know, it would explain some of his personality traits if that's the case.
Well, yeah, and he has the line about how, you know, he was born to be wealthy, whereas, you know, Fu Shang's character is
poor
just
and shabby.
Born to be shabby. So it's like he definitely, that based on that line, he's definitely someone of some kind of high birth.
But see, when he delivered that line though, when I first heard it, I thought he was just saying like I was meant to be like I'm so good that I was meant to be this way, and you're so bad you were meant to be poor and shabby. But you're probably right. Like, you might have been saying, I was born into this role, and you were born into that role.
Yeah. That's was my reading on it.
But anyways, to get back to the fight choreography, what did you guys think of the fight scenes and the weapon selection?
I really enjoy the use of the scabbards by both Xiao Dao and Tuan. It just makes sense. I mean, yeah, you have two things in your hands, so you're going to make the most of it, right? And I think particularly Xiao Dao with his daggers, you know, has a very sort of short threat range, so he has to use he uses his scabbard to sort of create opportunities for himself, and I think that was sort of very well reflected in the fight scenes.
I like the use of the long poled weapons personally. I like the design of the halberd that was used. I thought it was really cool, and my favorite scenes, I guess, were the silly fights that had like the first one in the gambling house while he's drawing up the contract and gambling away his life. He's fighting those three, and he's imitating them the whole time. I thought those were pretty funny.
Yeah, I like that fight a lot too. That was that was just some good slapstick kung fu there. I thought that was very well done. But yeah, the fighting throughout the whole movie was good. Having the halberd definitely did change things up a bit. It was nice to have that kind of variety of weapons. But I just thought that the fighting in this movie was pretty solid.
Yeah, I agree with Lady Chow Fung on the halberd, especially the halberd versus the sword. I quite liked that combo, and I liked the way that they were using the halberd. I liked the spinning of it. I liked, you know, it's that particular type that it looks like it really hurts when it hits somebody, you know, because it's kind of hooks into you, and it can be pretty nasty. I particularly liked it in the final scene when after the transformation, when it seemed like he maybe had a little bit more explosiveness to his attacks when he was using it. He seemed a little bit more on point, and his form just seemed tighter, and that might have just been the actor saying, okay, now post transformation this character is more skilled, but it was really good. Also, the guy, what was his name, Michael Chan, he did a really good jumping spinning back kick at one point in the movie that you almost didn't see because of the way that it was like I think it was one of these things where like it kind of flashed by, but it was a really good spinning jumping back kick, and I thought it I was pretty impressed with that. But I felt like for the most part it didn't feel like there was a lot of fighting in this movie, and I felt like a lot of the fights it was like there were occasional flashes of really cool style, and then it would kind of get sort of back down to like a regular level, if that makes sense. But I enjoyed it. I thought the fighting was good. It's just that there didn't feel like there was a whole lot of it, and I think that the scene in the beginning in the gambling hall. What were the three bandits that came in there? What was their leader's name? Was it Diao Chi? Was that his name?
I don't know. I don't recall.
But they came in and they tried to rob the gambling hall as Zhao Dao was trying to borrow money for the bet he was going to place that was going to eventually cause him to lose his freedom, and they interrupted it, and it looked like it was a regular thing because they're like, "You guys know the drill. Give us all the money." And they were kind of doing, I think, like he was trying to do like a monkey style.
Monkey.
Yeah, was it monkey? And then Alexander Fusheng sort of imitated him. I thought that was a funny scene, but I also felt like I was a little bit confused during that scene initially for some reason because there was so much going on. It was like a little bit too much for me to absorb in that moment. But overall, I liked the fight scenes.
Yeah, and I feel like you mentioned Joe Paper reference. I really do like the fact that that Alexander Fusheng used a dagger in this. And normally when you see daggers in wuxia movies, they're always being thrown. They're very rarely, or being used to stab someone in the back. They're rarely used in like sort of open combat as a main weapon of choice. And I don't know, it really fits Xiao Dao's character. I feel like to have a dagger because it's just his style to sort of be tricky and get up close and personal into a fight. It fits the character perfectly, and I think it was a very apt choice.
Yeah, no, I thought it worked, and I liked that he sort of had it seemed like he could use the scabbard to get more long range. Do you know what I mean? And then he could when he pulled out the dagger, then he had sort of the short range dagger. So it was so he kind of had like a little, I don't know what you would call it, like a club or a mini staff. When it was in the scabbard, and then you could take the dagger out, and so it felt like a versatile weapon to me. But yeah. So what about the conclusion of the movie? Did people feel that the conclusion was satisfying? It seems like, and again, I'm going to spoil the ending for everybody, but it seems like Zhao Dao is killed at the end. It's a little bit ambiguous because he doesn't completely die by the time the credits roll, but he's looks pretty mortally wounded, and but he was able to jump in at the right moment so that Tuan could kill the Lian San character and the doctor. So I don't know, were you guys, number one, did you find it to be a satisfying ending, and do you think that Zhao Dao died?
I don't think I don't feel like he died. Like I feel like he was just playing it up, and he was fine at the end of it. I don't know. I feel like because he seems like the sort of like the scoundrelly type that it's like, oh, I've been stabbed in the stomach, and then after a few minutes, but actually wait, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was, and then he just gets back up again afterwards. But I mean, compared to the wounds that Duan had taken in that fight, I mean, being stabbed in the stomach felt fairly tame as far as things go.
Yeah, well, at the end of there's the music at the end of the movie where there's that song, and it's like it kind of talks about their reputation growing or something. I forget the exact wording, but it just suggested to me that it's like that these two kind of team up or something after this. They become this team that works together. But I mean, I don't know how much you can actually take from the lyrics of the closing song, but. I can see that interpretation definitely.
And that song, it kind of reminded me of the opening song in Hero Shed No Tears, in that it's got that kind of a vibe, but it's also sung by Jenny, his wife. So it's kind of a dramatic, sort of very Marshall World appropriate sort of theme song. But I sort of interpreted it a little more darkly when I saw that. Like because the opening line in that song is "Heroes come and go in the martial world," and so I think there's actually some lines in there about the characters. It says the broken sword glitters like frost and snow. The little dagger begins to shine. Their reputation is known everywhere. Suddenly a spring thunder, an uproar in a small town. Destined enemies will be met. Competition in the open and in the dark. It's just very open to interpretation. But the heroes come and go thing did seem, but also he's wounded and he says, "Remember to buy me new clothes," and number one, it feels like last words to me, and it also is reminiscent of the his other character in the other movie where he's got where he wants the new shoes, and so
Disciples of Shaolin.
Thank you, Disciples of Shaolin.
It's my favorite movie.
And so it just, and I couldn't not think of that film when I saw that scene. So I was leaning towards him dying. I don't know. What did you think, Lady Chalfon? Do you think he's alive or dead?
I think he's dead, and for the exact same reasons that you do. The lyrics in the song played to me differently, and the tone of the song made me feel like death. And he said, "Remember to buy me the new clothes to bury me in." So that kind of gave me the feeling that he was going to die.
Now here's a question. There's a lot of humor in the movie, obviously, but would you consider this film a martial arts comedy?
I mean, like, would you consider The Mummy a comedy movie? I think there are moments of humor in that cropped up as well, right? And they were never really the focus. They just happened to be there to break up the tension a bit. And some of the characters were just written to be funny with the way they act. And then I wouldn't classify this as a martial arts comedy.
Yeah, the comparison I'd make, it's like how, your typical 80s buddy cop movie, you have a lot of jokes and interaction with that. It's like T. Lung and Alexander Fouchong's characters are both kind of funny at moments, and they're funny in the way they interact, but the movie itself isn't a comedy, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. There's moments to alleviate the darkness of the rest of the film, but yeah, it's not meant to be a comedy.
Yeah, and I would tend to agree with that. I asked because, Alexander Fouchong's character is funny for most of the movie, and so I just was curious what if it hit the point that it became a comedy. So we're coming on 50 minutes, so I think we've covered pretty much everything there is to cover.
Let's make one more comment quickly. It's just that I thought, for one of her early movies was such a tiny part, Kara Hui really stands out in this little role, which if you put like someone else in it could have been totally unforgettable. But I thought she just did she just really has this attitude that like comes through really powerfully in her role in this movie.
Yeah, I think you can definitely, like, you wish that you got more of that character. Like there's a moment when her and the Alexander Fouchong character exchange glances, and you almost are hoping that that's going to become a thing. But I mean, anytime Kara Hui is in anything, I think she's just one of these people that's so talented you can sort of see it a mile away, and so any role, it's just observable, and it's appropriate because next month we're going to be doing Kara Hui. So
that was my agenda. You found it.
And so I don't know, any other thoughts on the movie before we head out?
No, I think we covered just about everything. Yeah, I would say that the movie, rates on the higher end of the movies we watched. Definitely enjoyable. Like we mentioned, though, the plot can be a bit convoluted. Like you're never really sure where it's what it's trying to do at the beginning, and if you try to imagine all the possible like outcomes, you wouldn't really imagine the ending in the way it did, basically.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And yeah, so next week we are what are we doing? The Boxer Rebellion, is that our next movie?
Yes.
So we'll be back with the Boxer Rebellion. Again, people can go to our Patreon and give us support. We appreciate it. And we have a number of other shows on the channel that are going to be appearing. We have the I Claudius discussions that me and Adam are doing. We have the upcoming Brave Archer 3 Wuxia Workshop discussion. So people can check those out. And yeah, so we'll be back on next week and continue the Alexander Fu Sheng month. And then next month we're gonna start with a Kara Hui theme. So we will talk to you later.